Hi guys, my name is Robert Kalin, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the spin technique of selling and why it works. So the spin technique was developed about 30 years ago by a guy named Neil Rackham in his book called Spin Selling. So there's three main components that go into spin selling, and the first of these components is the spin questions. And basically these are a specific set of questions that are asked in a very specific order that basically has the customer sell what they need to you. And I'll get more into that in a little bit. But the second component of spin selling is demonstrating capabilities. And these capabilities are laid out as features, advantages, and benefits. And when using the spin technique, you want to figure out how you can link these three things to go along with your customer's problem and how they can help fix that problem. So the final component of spin selling is handling objections. And the main idea when it comes to objections in the spin method is avoiding the objections altogether, which can be difficult, but I'll talk about some ways that you can avoid them. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so there are four types of spin questions, and they're asked in a specific order. So the first questions are the situational questions, and these are designed just to engage with the customer, kind of figure out their unique situation, but nothing too specific, mostly general. You don't want to ask questions that are too general, questions about the company as a whole, because then it looks like you didn't do your research before you came to the meeting. But you want to keep them somewhat broad, but just make sure they're relating to your overall goal of the conversation. So the next is the problem questions, and these questions are kind of designed to pinpoint what their need is, where they're having issues, but not talking about how to fix that problem, just finding out where that problem is. The third type of questions is the impact question or implication questions. And these questions are designed just to figure out how that problem that they just discussed is affecting the company as a whole. Is the failure to do this making it hard for you to do this? Questions like that, just finding out what the problems are causing, or what's causing the problems. And then the final questions is the need payoff questions. You're basically asking the customer what needs to be fixed and how can it be fixed, and what would be the benefits behind that fix. So basically the whole idea behind it is you're having the customer sell it themselves, sell whatever you're trying to sell them themselves. You want them stating, what their need is, why it needs to be fixed, and how it can be fixed. And by doing this, you can start to develop a better relationship with your customer. Because if they feel like they're the ones presenting the problem, they're the ones presenting a solution, they don't feel like they're being pushed into anything, they don't feel pressured to make a decision, because they're the ones that said, what they need. And this is going to be important later when I talk about handling objections, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So now I'd like to move on to capabilities. So there's three main capability functions. The first is features. Features are essentially just what your product does, face value, what is it, and that's basically it for those. And then when you move on, you go into advantages, which is the second one, and the advantages are how those features are used. What are the practical implications of those features? And then the third capability is benefits, and that is relating those advantages to the customer's specific need, being able to find out how your solution is tailored to exactly what the customer is looking for. And if you can link all these together, it goes back to building that relationship with the customer, because they're going to see that you did the research beforehand to find out, not only how your service or product can fix anything or whatever, but it's how it specifically can work for your customer and their problem, and that's just going to make them trust you that much more. So now we get into handling objections. So like I said earlier, the SPIN method basically says the best way to handle objections is to avoid them altogether. Now, I mean, there's always going to be some objections. That's inevitable. There's no way around that. But the key is to limit those objections as much as possible. If you can limit those objections, then that's going to alleviate some of the customers' fears about going into business with you. The more objections they have, the more anxious they're going to be about the decision, because they're not sure on multiple different levels, and so it doesn't feel comfortable to make a decision right away. If you can use those SPIN questions to be able to make the customer more comfortable, because they have already answered all the hesitations they might have had, then they're going to be much more likely to trust you, because they've essentially eliminated some of the worries that they had when it came to doing business with you. So in conclusion, I mean, this method's been around for a long time, as I said earlier, but it's been proven to work over traditional methods. A lot of guys like to use a very pushy sales technique, which, I mean, can work in some situations, but for the most part, you know, the customer's going to be able to tell that you're not invested in them if you're just trying to push your product on them. If you're able to engage them and build that relationship with them through these questions and have them work with you as opposed for you just working for them, then you're going to be able to gain that trust and hopefully, if all goes well, gain their business. That's all I got. Thank you.